What if the silent gunfighters of the Wild West were born from warriors in ancient Japan? Long before the tumbleweeds rolled and pistols fired, the code of the Ronin had already defined vengeance, solitude, and justice. The spaghetti western did not begin in Italy or America. It began with the clash of swords in Japanese reign. These are 10 samurai films that shaped the entire Western myth and rewrote cinematic history forever. Number 10. Yojimbo, 1961. When Akira Kurosawa made Yojimbo, he changed everything. The story follows a lone wanderer, played by Toshiro Mifune, who drifts into a corrupt town ruled by rival gangs. He pits one side against the other until both collapse. It is a film about decay, power, and survival. Yojimbo is not about honor or loyalty. It is about intelligence against chaos and silence against corruption. Audiences in Japan were stunned. Western critics called it cynical and violent. Yet the dusty village and brutal morality felt strangely familiar. The Ronin moved like a gunslinger. The wind carried the sound of lawlessness. Kurosawa had unknowingly painted the blueprint for the Western anti-hero. Then came the scandal. Italian director Sergio Leone copied the film almost frame for frame to create A Fistful of Dollars. Kurosawa sued and won the case. The irony was poetic. From that theft, a new genre was born. Behind the scenes, Kurosawa shot in real windstorms. Dust filled every frame to give the world a sense of rot. Mifune practiced the Ronin's gestures until every twitch felt deliberate and dangerous. Yojimbo left a scar on cinema. It proved that a man with no name could carry an entire culture's fear of corruption. That myth became the spine of every spaghetti western ever made. Number 9. Sanjuro, 1962. Sanjuro is not a sequel. It is a reflection. Kurosawa brought back the same Ronin from Yojimbo, now older, wiser, and more weary. 9 young samurai beg him for help to expose the corruption in their clan. He agrees, but what follows is a lesson in disillusionment. Every act of heroism reveals new deceit. Every victory tastes like defeat. Kurosawa filled the story with irony. The Ronin mocks tradition even as he upholds it. The tone is darker and more human. Sanjuro's final duel lasts only seconds, but its aftermath lingers for a lifetime. When the geyser of blood explodes across the screen, the world stops. Japanese censors demanded the scene be cut, but Kurosawa refused. He wanted the moment to show the truth of death, not its beauty. The production was physically brutal. Mifune rehearsed in silence for hours to master stillness. Kurosawa waited for the right wind to move a single leaf before he rolled the camera. Critics in Japan found it unsettling, but years later, Western directors called it prophetic. Its legacy is carved in shadow. Sanjuro became the bridge between sword and gun. It showed that real courage lives not in killing, but in restraint. Number 8. Harakiri, 1962. Masaki Kobayashi's Harakiri is a thunderclap of rebellion. It begins with a Ronin arriving at a lord's mansion, asking permission to die. But his calm request hides a storm. Through flashbacks, we learn that his life was destroyed by the same feudal code that now demands his death. What follows is not a tragedy, but an autopsy of honor itself. The film dared to question Japan's sacred traditions. Authorities feared its message and tried to suppress its screenings abroad. Yet those who saw it called it one of the most honest films ever made. Every sword stroke feels like a question. Every silence burns. Kobayashi used minimal movement and cold light to expose cruelty behind ceremony. Actor Tatsuya Nakadai trained for months to control every breath and gesture. His performance became a masterclass in contained fury. Kobayashi himself, a veteran of war, filled every frame with defiance. Western filmmakers studied Harakiri in awe. Clint Eastwood and Don Siegel both admitted that its moral clarity inspired their later westerns. Its influence stretched beyond genre. It taught that rebellion could be quiet and truth could bleed without sound. Harakiri endures as a mirror of hypocrisy. It shows that codes built on lies always collapse. The Ronin's blade cuts not flesh but illusion, and that cut still echoes through every desert duel ever filmed. Number 7. The Sword of Doom, 1966. The Sword of Doom is one of the darkest visions in samurai history. Directed by Kihachi Okamoto, it tells the story of Ryunosuke, a skilled swordsman whose talent is poisoned by cruelty. He kills without remorse and wanders through Japan like a ghost of violence. The film feels cursed from its first frame. Snow falls without sound. Faces vanish in shadow. Death follows every step he takes. Japanese critics were divided. Some called it genius, others called it blasphemy. The government disliked its moral emptiness. Okamoto refused to give the audience redemption. He wanted the world to see what happens when the code of the sword loses its soul. The final scene was so disturbing that the studio cut parts of it for fear of backlash. Behind-the-scenes actor Tatsuya Nakadai entered a trance-like state during filming. His eyes were said to terrify the crew. Kurosawa himself called it one of the most powerful performances in Japanese cinema. Years later, Western directors saw The Sword of Doom as a blueprint for the nihilism of spaghetti westerns like Django and The Great Silence. The film's endless snow, its haunted silences, and its broken hero became symbols of a world where morality dies and only survival remains. Its legacy is chilling. The Sword of Doom taught that violence without cause becomes madness, and that lesson crossed oceans into the heart of every anti-hero with a gun. Number 6. Samurai Rebellion, 1967. Masaki Kobayashi returned with another act of defiance. Samurai Rebellion is the story of a loyal warrior, pushed too far by a cruel lord. Toshiro Mifune plays Isaburo, a man who has spent his life obeying orders until his family is torn apart by politics. When the system demands his surrender, he finally raises his sword not for honor, but for love. The film was considered dangerous at the time. Its message of defiance against authority struck deep in a society built on obedience. Studio executives worried it would offend conservative audiences. But Kobayashi refused to change a single line. Mifune's performance burned with quiet rage. Every movement spoke of a man awakening to his own dignity. The duel sequences were filmed with real exhaustion. Kobayashi ordered take after take until the actors trembled with fatigue. That raw weariness gave the film its truth. Critics in the West compared it to High Noon, calling it the Japanese answer to moral courage. The film's final image, a father facing impossible odds, became a symbol of conscience over conformity. Samurai Rebellion lives on as a bridge between eras. It showed that rebellion does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers through clenched teeth and ends with a single cut that defies an empire. Number 5. Three Outlaw Samurai, 1964. Hideo Gosha's Three Outlaw Samurai exploded onto the screen like a storm. It was rough, raw, and unapologetically rebellious. The film follows three drifters who unite to defend peasants against corrupt officials. Unlike traditional samurai tales, these men are flawed and uncertain. They fight not for honor, but for survival. Their swords are tools, not symbols. When it premiered, many critics dismissed it as too violent. Government censors objected to its portrayal of class struggle. Yet Gosha's vision was unstoppable. He turned muddy roads and broken armor into poetry. Every swing of a blade felt like a protest against tradition. The production was chaotic. Gosha insisted on shooting real duels with minimal choreography. Actors bled. Extras fainted from exhaustion. But what emerged was authenticity. Western audiences later recognized its spirit in films like The Magnificent Seven and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The legacy of Three Outlaw Samurai lies in its dirt and desperation. It stripped away the myth of the noble warrior and exposed the pain beneath loyalty. In doing so, it became the missing link between the wandering Ronin and the weary gunslinger. Three outlaw samurai whispered a truth that echoed across genres. In every age, the oppressed need defenders, and those defenders always walk alone. Number 4. Rashomon, 1950. Rashomon was the film that introduced Japanese cinema to the world and forever changed how stories could be told. Directed by Akira Kurosawa, it is not a film about battle or conquest, but about perception. The story is simple on the surface. A samurai is found dead in the woods, and 3 witnesses tell what they saw. Each version is completely different. No one can be trusted. No truth can be confirmed. When Rashomon premiered in Japan, audiences were confused. Its structure defied everything they knew about storytelling. There was no hero and no resolution. The government feared it made Japan look deceitful in the eyes of the world. Some theaters hesitated to screen it. Kurosawa ignored them. He believed truth itself was the ultimate battlefield. The production was grueling. Kurosawa shot through real sunlight filtering through forest canopies to create a shimmering uncertainty that matched the story's lies. Actors performed take after take until exhaustion blurred their own sense of reality. Toshiro Mifune's feral performance as the bandit Tajomaru was unlike anything seen before. His laughter seemed unhuman, his movements unpredictable. When Rashomon reached the Venice Film Festival in 1951, it stunned audiences. Western critics had never seen such psychological depth. The film won the Golden Lion and opened the door for Japanese cinema worldwide. Its fractured narrative inspired generations of filmmakers from Sergio Leone to Martin Scorsese to Quentin Tarantino. The film's influence on the Western genre is profound. The idea that every gunslinger, every outlaw, every lawman has his own version of the truth became a cornerstone of the spaghetti Western. Rashomon taught that the real duel is not fought with weapons, but with memory and guilt. Its legacy remains eternal. Rashomon proved that truth is never simple, and that every legend in the dust begins with someone's lie. Number 3. Seven Samurai, 1954. There are few films in history as monumental as Seven Samurai. Akira Kurosawa created more than a movie. He built a universe. The story follows a small village terrorized by bandits. Desperate and poor, the villagers hire 7 Ronin to defend them. What follows is not a tale of victory, but of sacrifice. Each samurai carries his own scars, his own regrets, and his own quiet code. The film was nearly never completed. Kurosawa's perfectionism drove the budget to record levels. Studio heads panicked. Crews worked through storms and mud to build a real village in the countryside. Every battle scene was choreographed like a symphony of chaos. The director insisted that rain fall at exact angles. He wanted the world to feel alive and merciless. Japanese censors worried that Seven Samurai glorified rebellion. The government still preferred stories that reinforced loyalty to authority. Kurosawa's film instead honored individuality and defiance. Each warrior questions the meaning of duty and realizes that true honor lies in compassion, not blind obedience. When the film reached the West, it ignited a creative explosion. John Sturges remade it as The Magnificent Seven. Sergio Leone borrowed its pacing and moral tension for his Dollars trilogy. The themes of sacrifice and camaraderie echoed through every Western frontier. Behind the camera, Kurosawa invented techniques that would shape action cinema forever. His use of telephoto lenses, dynamic movement, and weather as symbolism became the new cinematic grammar. Actors endured months of training in real armor. Horses panicked under thunder and rain. What remained on screen was pure endurance. Seven Samurai endures as a monument to human resilience. It showed that heroism is not about surviving. It is about standing firm even when the world forgets your name. Its rain-soaked finale is more than a victory. It is a requiem for all who fight, knowing they will never win. Number 2. Ran, 1985. If Throne of Blood was Kurosawa's Macbeth, then Ran was his King Lear, a vision so vast and sorrowful it felt like the final word on war itself. Released in 1985, Ran follows an aging warlord whose decision to divide his kingdom among his sons ignites betrayal, chaos, and annihilation. The title means chaos, and every frame lives up to it. Kurosawa, now in his 70s, poured a lifetime of wisdom and loss into the film. The battle scenes are among the most breathtaking ever filmed. Hundreds of real soldiers, no CGI, moving like waves of color and despair across scorched landscapes. He used hand-painted storyboards for every shot and waited years for financing, believing it would be his last great statement. It nearly broke him, but he called it his most truthful work. Japanese critics were initially divided. Some thought it too bleak, too Western. But veterans of both cinema and war saw the truth in its silence. The thunder of hooves fades into wind. Blood spills, but honor means nothing. Even the sky seems to mourn. Behind the scenes, Kurosawa built massive sets on Mount Aso, an active volcano, and burned them for real. He used natural light and smoke as characters of their own. Tatsuya Nakadai, playing the Doom Lord Hidatora, was buried under layers of ash-white makeup to appear like a man already dead. Western directors like Coppola and Scorsese called Ran the greatest war film ever made, not for its battles, but for its understanding of pride and ruin. In it, Kurosawa turned feudal tragedy into something timeless. The apocalypse of the human heart. Number 1. Throne of Blood, 1957. Throne of Blood stands as one of the most haunting films ever made. Akira Kurosawa took the story of Macbeth and transformed it into a fever dream of ambition and doom. The film follows Takatoki Washizu, a loyal warrior who rises to power through betrayal and prophecy only to be consumed by paranoia. The castles are drowned in fog. The forests seem alive. Every gust of wind feels like fate whispering. Japanese audiences were both mesmerized and disturbed. Shakespeare's tale of guilt and madness was already dark, but Kurosawa stripped away the poetry and left only silence and dread. When the film premiered, censors hesitated. They claimed it painted Japan's feudal era as savage and hopeless. Kurosawa refused to alter a single frame. He believed human ambition was the true enemy, not culture or country. The production itself became legend. The final scene where Mifune's Washizu is shot by hundreds of arrows was filmed with real arrows launched by professional archers. Each was aimed inches from his body. His terror was genuine. Every twitch, every scream was real fear caught on film. Crew members stood behind shields as arrows ripped through wooden walls. Critics across the world hailed it as the most cinematic adaptation of Macbeth ever made. Western directors like Roman Polanski and Sam Peckinpah would later study it for its raw energy and moral collapse. It became the spiritual ancestor of every Western that explored the madness of power. Films like The Wild Bunch and Once Upon a Time in the West carry its ghost. Throne of Blood endures because it reveals what happens when power consumes purpose. In Kurosawa's vision, the samurai code is not honor, but hunger. The fog never lifts the castle, never sleeps, and the blade that kills is always the one turned inward. It is not just tragedy, it is prophecy. These 10 films reshaped cinema and changed how the world saw the hero's journey. From mist-covered castles to sun-scorched deserts, the spirit of the samurai became the heartbeat of the Western. Every gunshot still echoes their code. Which of these legends haunts you most? Like the video, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more hidden cinematic truths.